I am 48 years old, but this happened when I was around 15 or 16 years old. A lot of the details have been lost due to that time that passed, but I remember most of it. It was late spring around 1987 in Florida. School was almost over for the year, and I was excited for summer and endless beach days. I was working after school every day at one of the oldest ice cream shops near the beach on Gulf Tibet Boulevard. It's still there, actually. It's called the Dairy Curl. As an aspiring musician, I had surrounded my personal life with like-minded people and would spend every waking moment playing guitar or learning guitar. One person I was playing with was quite older than me. Our relationship was strictly platonic, and we were great friends. She was a brilliant writer and very much into the psychic phenomenon, playing with Ouija boards and tarot cards. We had used the board a few times, and she'd given me a few readings. One Friday night, we had made plans for a few friends to meet at her house and party, maybe smoke a little weed and play some music after I got off work. The day was normal, just school and serving ice cream to tourists and beachgoers. This was the place to stop on the way back after a long day of sun, and it was definitely a hot spring and the start of summer. We were very busy that night. Around 9 p.m., we started to close up shop, cleaning the outside seating areas, the floors, and all the other stuff that goes along with shutting down an ice cream shop. My friend Monica, whom I was speaking of earlier, was tasked by picking me up after work. Around 9:15, she pulled up with her friend Lisa in this early 80s, late 70s green station wagon that we called the Green Beast. It was very apparent by the sound of the exhaust that she had just shown up. I quickly made both of them some milkshakes and told them to hold off, as I'd be another 30 minutes cleaning before I could clock out. I ran the shakes out to them, only to find them lying on their backs on the huge hood of the station wagon looking at the sky. I handed them their shakes and asked them about their day and why they were on the hood of the car and not inside the car in the cold AC. Monica pointed out a cloud in the sky, which was fairly clear and plenty of stars out. She explained this cloud had followed them from their house all the way to Clearwater Beach. I scoffed and looked up at the cloud and explained it looked like a spotlight from one of the many clubs near that area that usually use them on the weekends to attract customers. I blew it off, as I had already explained what it was, and went about my business. I finished cleaning and grabbed the guitar I always carried with me and my school backpack and headed out to the car, only to find them in the exact same positions. When I walked outside, I laughed that they were still telling me this cloud, which was still there by the way, had followed them. I once again laughed it off and we all climbed into the car. Now, I was kind of paying attention to this cloud at this point because, well, it was still there, and at this point I realized how close it actually was when I had time to look at it in detail. It seemed to only be about 100 to 200 feet away in the northeast sky. Monica backed the car out of the parking spot, and we left the ice cream shop and made a right on Gulf Tibet Boulevard. As we made the right and headed towards the Belcher Road, I began to suspect that the cloud indeed was following us, kind of blowing it off like the moon follows you in the sky, but noticing this was just different. We traveled a few miles. I believe our turn was about 3 to 4 miles up, where we'd be making another right and heading south on Belcher, towards Monica's house. The cloud was beginning to look a lot less like a cloud, and actually a lot more like mist to me. It was clearly following us. It wasn't until we made the right onto Belcher Road when it made the right turn with us, and now was sitting about 75 to 100 feet from my window, and it followed us. As we passed East Bay Road and approached Ulmerton, I began to freak out. It then split into 4 separate mists. They rotated around each other, coming back into one piece. My freaking out got way more intense, and the hairs on my body were standing straight out. I could feel it. I could feel this thing paying attention to me, focusing on me. I lost it. I started screaming at it, "What do you want? What do you want from me?" over and over. Monica was telling me to calm down. It wasn't there to hurt anyone. Honestly, I didn't feel like it was there to hurt anyone either, but I was still scared, and I mean really scared. After a few more miles, we made a left off Belcher onto the 94th or the 82nd. I forget which turn it was, but I continued to lose it down this road too. As we got closer to the house, it was really close, and I clammed up and crawled between the front seats and the rear seats and hunkered down on the floor, sobbing like a baby. This thing made me feel. I'm not sure what the feeling was, but it was doing it to me. Not them, but just to me. I could feel its energy coursing through me. I've never felt that sense with anything else in my entire life. When we arrived at Monica's house, I immediately exited the car and ran into the house. I glanced back and saw it, and it was really close now. 50 feet away, I'd say. As I entered the house out of breath, tears in my eyes, and still obviously panicked, I tried to explain what was going on. My friends immediately went towards the front door. As Monica and Lisa were walking in, though, they said, "It's gone, Kip. It literally disappeared the second you shut the front door." It took me a while to calm down. A few beers, and I was relaxed. That night, it still stuck with me in the back of my mind, though, and soon it was not the topic of conversation. We partied the night away and played music till early morning. But the next morning, I had to go home. I was living at my mom's house at the time in a neighborhood on the corner of Belcher and Ulmerton in Largo, Florida. Monica and I had some coffee. I packed my stuff while everyone slept, and she took me home. Now, what you need to know about my mother is everyone loved her. She was the neighborhood mom. When we arrived at my house, Monica came in to hang out for a minute and say hello. Mom had breakfast ready for us, and we sat down to have some food. Monica brought up the night before and said, "You should tell your mom what happened." So I explained everything. She sat silently listening while tears welled up in her eyes. Now, my mom was the type of person that cried at a Hallmark movie or even just a Hallmark commercial. So it wasn't out of the blue for her to just cry, bless her heart. But when I finished, she said she also had something to tell me. And this is the story that she told me. When she was little, her grandfather had died suddenly from a massive heart attack, and they were broke, living in the mountains of West Virginia. They had a small coal mine on the property that my great-grandfather would mine and sell the coal at the bottom of a hill. He sold it to a coal company or other residents that needed coal for heat. When he passed, they had nothing. They knew, though, that he was a penny pincher and saved every dime that he could. He had money somewhere. They just didn't know where. And now they were starving, living off of beans and greens from the modest plot of land they farmed. One night, a couple weeks after he passed, they were all sitting by the fire and talking. She explained that it was late, and there was a knock on the door. During these times, if there was an unannounced visitor, something was wrong. My great-grandmother told the kids to go upstairs and stay there. My mother, being the curious one and the oldest, hid at the bottom of the stairs and watched. This is what she said. When her granny opened the door, there was a cloud. It sat there, and she calmly asked what it wanted. She followed the cloud outside, and as she did, my mother went to a window to watch her. She said the cloud went to a tree and then just simply vanished. Granny walked back into the house and didn't say a word. The next day, though, she woke my mother up early to help, told her to go to the shed and grab a shovel. They both walked to the tree, and Granny started digging. About a foot down, she hit something metal, and they kept digging, pulling out 4 coffee cans out of the soil. They opened the cans one by one, and there was my great-grandfather's life savings. The whole time she was telling the story, that same feeling I had the night before returned. She told me she thought that mist was her grandfather watching out for them, and that this cloud was my great-grandfather watching out for me and letting us know that he's still out there. Now, I don't know if that's a fact, but it sure makes sense to me. Anyways, that's my story. I've never seen that cloud or mist or whatever it was again, but I have a feeling before my time is over on this earth, I'll see it again. I hope you guys find this story interesting, because I sure do. I've told it to a few people that I've been close to for the last 33 years or so, but I've never written it down. This was my chance. Have a great day.